suggestions, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. Hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Ways. Tonight I have a friend and a fellow author, a visionary, and a truth weaver, James True. James, your writing is like my new apex moment of literature. You're at the top of my short list, along with Vonnegut, Le Guin, and Eggers, all of a totally different style. And a small part of what rocketed you to the top for me is that you use second-person point of view so often, and that is one of my favorite things in the world. It is very efficacious, and it calls and garners attention immediately. It's almost like its own form of magic as far as I'm concerned, but we were always told not to use it in writing classes in school, so it's very interesting to me that it's that effective and that we were told not to use it. It's like a tool that was taken away from us, but how appropriate then that you would use it so profusely in these tomes that you scribe, which become axes in the facade of the spell that has encased us all. James True, it's an honor to have you back on Rogue Ways once again. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yay.
Seriously. Been looking forward to this.
Cool. Well, I'm going to tell people about a few things I have going on before we get started. So first of all, people can always go to rogueways.org. You can get lots of writing and art and different things that I do there that are fun for you. There's some tarot also as an option. If you would like to gift me some money, then you can also get a gift back of a tarot reading. I outline that in the tarot section. There's also a shop there where you can get rogue gear, like this Rogue Ways sweatshirt and this Rogue Ways mug and other things like that I'm super excited about. I have people sending me pictures of some of their rogue gear as they're getting it, and that's really fun. Right now I'm also doing a special on my book, Sine Curve of Aeons. It's $15 plus tax plus shipping and Amazon, but I'll send it to you for $15 flat if you want to give that to my PayPal, which is where you can also donate to the show, which I've had more people showing their support by donating to PayPal, and I really appreciate that. If you find value in the content that I do and provide, then that's a fantastic way to support me. So to buy the book or to donate to the show, that's paypal.me/Corey Sharman, which is QUORRISCHARMYN. And that link is also on my site and in most of my YouTube videos. And finally, I have a Subscribestar now. So subscribestar.com/rogue-ways. And you can support me monthly. If you just want to subscribe, you get even more content than you can find here for free and on my site for free. I'm doing videos. I've got 2 up there already with Michael Wan about the Susquehanna alchemy and the Susquehanna mystery that he talks about. And I will also be releasing my audiobook there. So if you're interested in listening to Sine Curve of Aeons and my next book that's about to be finished, that is where you can get that. So enough about me. James, as you know, I like to ask the pointless question of the episode. And tonight, my pointless question for you is, what is your favorite bird and why?
I really like raptors a lot. Some people don't consider them birds. Some people consider them more like evil beasts.
Oh, they're beautiful beasts. They're definitely birds. People are crazy.
I really like raptors a lot.
Me too.
It's kind of hard to pick.
Just one.
It's kind of hard to pick one. Yeah, it's kind of hard.
It is really hard. They're all really cool.
Yeah.
I have a special connection with eagle, which I know is very like standard or it's like basic or whatever. And red-tailed hawk. I found a red-tailed hawk feather once that was pretty amazing. It was like pristine, just like in the middle of the path.
Yeah.
And one time I found an osprey feather, which also was rad. And so I love ospreys too, but
yeah,
those
guys are amazing.
Those are all 3 raptors, aren't they?
Yeah. The osprey's eyes too are definitely my favorite raptor eyes. Out of all the birds, the osprey is just it's magical. It's so beautiful.
It can like fly through like the tiniest crack and like move its wings in just the right timing to like get through it. And that's all like vision and practice, I guess. But they're amazing.
Yeah, lots of practice. There's osprey school, and then there's osprey finishing school.
And
not all the ospreys go on.
If they're lucky, they get internships.
Yeah. There's a lot of Osprey internships out there. Thank goodness for the Osprey education programs that
Yes.
we all have been working so hard on here
Dude,
at Osprey University.
we don't even know how much work goes into that behind the scenes.
It's so much because even to get him to hold the pencil takes at least 4 years.
It's true.
Like at least 4 years.
Dude,
Because
they'd
they
be
can
better.
grab it, but they get him to turn and then scribble. It's just very difficult.
But once
very
we get them there, then they can like replace all the politicians and the world's problems will be solved.
Yeah. Although the politicians are not the world, the problems of the world. It's the people that accept the politicians that are the problem in the world.
Agreed. Yes.
Politicians are just feeding off the buffet that we provide them.
That's absolutely true. I agree. So I love your blueprints of mind control. This is the only one I finished so far, and I can't wait to read Spell of Six Dragons and the newest one, The Technology of Belief. So I wish we were talking about that one instead. I should have read that one first, but instead we're talking about this one, which is an excellent book.
Well, you can start with that one.
Okay.
So that's fine.
Okay, good. It's a delight for me for how poetically and beautifully and precisely and often very bluntly you walk people through the most complicated history of our current conundrum. It's really gorgeous what you've done here, and so I'm excited that you're letting me like help you showcase it on this show so people can get an idea of the types of things, but also the way you write. The style is also gorgeous. So
Thanks.
Yeah, it's awesome to read. So I'm gonna find and read the first quote. And so what we talked about is that I have all these quotes that I think like you have this really excellent skill in kind of like packing a lot into one sort of phrase. And so I've picked out some of my favorites of those, and we'll just go through them until we're like bored, or we can break off into whatever discussion might come from them until we both have to go, and then that'll be that. So but first I wanted to start with this quote because it really resonates with what we're doing in this discussion right now, and hopefully it will resonate with the audience too. So you say, "Let's resonate now on the memory of what keeps happening to us. We have to wake up now." And so I think that's kind of like what we're trying to do in this talk as well. So I wanted to start there, but then let me just grab a nugget of gold. All right. You say, this is towards the beginning, so these are all going to be in order other than the one that I just read. You say, the tribe was self-correcting every minute, day after day. I'd like you to elaborate on that if you would.
Yeah. If you were to, so if you understand so all of us understand how trauma works,
Yes.
But if you recognize how trauma works, if you actually watch it as it echoes through a community or through a family or through a person or through a pack of dogs at a dog park, trauma always ripples out the same style, the same way. And if you understand that, then you start to see that there's always this amnesia cloud that comes along with trauma. And this is the resonance thing that I'm talking about, that it becomes a sort of a pulsar that someone can do to keep the trauma resonating over and over again. And if you can imagine what life is like without that thumper, without that worm thumper in the dust of doom, without it thumping like drama,
Yes.
you can picture what life is like without trauma.
Yes.
And when you can picture that, it's a quieter kind of a life. It's listening to the rain instead of like music or a movie. There's no words. Everything's subtle. Everything's dialed back. Everything's tuned down. In that silence, a great, huge amount of wisdom rises and erupts from us. And that wisdom is purposely being drowned out through trauma, through all the other systems that we have in place right now. So it's a necessary function to maintain control, that you're going to have these thumpers, these trauma thumpers that are actively working all the time to just silence. To noisify the silence.
Yeah.
Is basically what the goal is, but more on an energetic chemical level. like on your own personal being kind of a situation. It's there's natural law, which has its own form of trauma inside of it.
Yeah.
Two raptors will compete, or a raptor will take out a rabbit and the rabbit will get away. Now the rabbit is living with, like, he's missing one eye and he's got like a bad limb, right? So that rabbit now has trauma. I'm not saying that trauma is not natural to the natural world. Right. However, there's not a lot of species out there that actually use trauma as an instrument for control. There definitely are some. Freaking orca whales, holy God, they're so, oh my God, they're so vicious. Mean. They're so mean what they do to sperm whales. That's an example of it. But also dolphins to porpoises, porpoises to dolphins. There's a lot of racism under the sea there when it comes to them hating each other. But also humans. Humans have learned how to breed trauma epigenetically. Yeah. And as you epigenetically create these resonant people, you actually end up with a thoroughbred horse, but it's a human instead. It's a thoroughbred zombie. And they become so predictable that you're able to basically use them to as a robot, as an automaton or a golem. In which you are actually implanted a spell, a program is implanted into someone's mind, and they end up going out and fulfilling these obligations purely based on the trauma that was maybe set in place 4, 5, 6 generations ago. Yeah. This is going to depend on how well epigenetic trauma transfers through to your through your DNA line, and also whether or not someone's healed or not from it. Imagine that same rabbit that every day all his friends would like wake up in the morning and like paint osprey eyes on their foreheads and like rah! And like, it's like constant, just all the time, where there's never a chance to heal. And then imagine that rabbit having babies, and the babies are now raised by the milk of this constant fear kind of a situation.
And they're literally created in the matrix of that constant fear too within the womb.
Yeah, exactly, because you develop a dopamine fix for that. You develop a dopamine fix which comes in through as what we call fetish now, which is really misunderstood. But we see these fetishes that pop up. This really is probably what's infecting America. This concept of Wetiko, this was just sort of a fetish for normalcy. We now have a fetish for things being natural again, and it's a fetish because we can't hold on to it. It's we hold on to it in a very unsafe way. In other words, we praise the label natural as long as it's printed in gloss on a box. Then we will accept it as natural.
Yeah, I went to a farmer's market once and I talked to this farmer and I was like, "Are these organic?" And he's like, "I literally cannot tell you they are organic. I can tell you that I did not use any pesticides." And I was like, how ridiculous, because I'll buy that. I trust him and I bought it and it's organic. But like, how awful is it that he probably doesn't get a lot of sales because he's not technically like labeled as organic in this like shiny package, but he's actually the real organic, the old school organic.
Because we're taught that natural comes in a box. We're taught that fixes come by a currency transaction. We're taught that nutrition comes with a currency transaction, and anything that doesn't involve a currency transaction is bad. Yes. And anything is going to be poisoned that would not be that could not be run through a currency transaction. That's going to be shat upon, as it were.
Isn't that interesting? I've been on hikes with people before where, in the Pacific Northwest, at least, there's just food all over the trail. Like there's 20 kinds of berries and there's all this stuff that you can eat. And, I'd be like, here, like try this. And they'd be like, ooh, no, like you just picked that off a bush. And it's like, well, that's where your food comes from. Like this is food. This is where it is.
That shows you the disassociation that happens in materialism. It's showing you this illusion. Imagine their psyche has a saran wrap film now, that where they themselves are now inside of saran wrap because they cannot just go out and pick up milkweed or pick up whatever the fuck it is and either get sick from it or feel better from it. Yeah. The point is that they can't even access it because there's a shrink wrap coating that's stopping them from immersing themselves in the world.
Which is
This is
100% created and
yeah,
inserted into them. Like,
this is the fetish of materialism. We think in terms of materialism right now because it keeps us in a compartmentalized state where we're not actually able to connect, because we believe things have souls, and if you've been lucky enough, you've been given a version of a soul, and then therefore you are now higher ranked than everything else that doesn't have a soul. And then there are lesser things that pretend to have a soul but don't really have a soul. And then above all of you that do have a soul, even though you thought you were great, it's actually, no, you're not actually the chosen souls.
Yeah.
You were just like a lesser unchosen sort of a soul. And then you're like, well, what the fuck does that mean? And then they're like, well, look, just follow your apostles. So now you have a soul pyramid
hierarchy, yeah.
where you have a hierarchical system, a chain of command now in souls. And then you have above the unchosen, there's the chosen, and then within the chosen there is the acolytes, and then within the acolytes there's the deacons, and then underneath that, then you have the Son of God, for example. So you have this Tower of Babel that's being built psychically in your mind through beliefs, and it requires you to create that saran wrap around yourself so that you can not be immersed in the world. Instead of sort of turn into a block yourself where other people are now building themselves on top of you too. It's terrible. But that's what's happening all around us.
We've internalized it, and then we're constantly re-traumatized all the time. I was just talking to Michael Wan earlier today, and we were talking about how even tiny things are meant to re-traumatize us, because people, I think, misunderstand that trauma can also exist in the form of not like an acute specific trauma, but in a series of uncertainties. And that this can actually result in PTSD and other things, and so it's significant, but that is used against us as well. Even to the point where, like, you go into a store to go shopping and everything's been rearranged. You pick up your phone to, like, do something with it, and the app has been completely reinstalled, and like it's all different. You have to learn how to use it. And it's like it's like slowly we're learning to deal with, or maybe we always have in this society at least, had this sort of lack of stability that has induced its own sort of ongoing micro trauma, or however you want to think of that. It's like constant change. There's no stability. There's nothing is going to be the same tomorrow as it was today, which is like, it's life. There's an aspect of it that's real, right? Like, that's just true. You're going to change. Things are going to change. Like, that's normal. But like, this is a false sort of, created and like imposed from the outside in order to induce stress.
Yeah, it's not really change. It's more of just variety. There's a big difference between change and variety, and that has more to do with that, I think, than anything else. That's why they established the school as such a 1 hour, then 1 hour, then 1 hour, then 1 hour, and work
so unnatural.
A set of hours, then a break, then a set of hours, then a break, and then there's the week itself. There's a set of days, then there's a break, then there's a set of days, then there's a break. So, yeah, it's pretty awful. It's when you're surrounded with people that live off of appointments, it's a really different kind of place to be in. You can't even really get into a flow state when you're constantly following appointments. You don't know that on Thursday at 2 p.m. I'm going to be way into playing guitar, or I'm going to really be into being outside. You don't know.
Can't schedule that.
We're still pretending that no, you can of course know that's exactly how life's supposed to work. You're constantly in I've got 10 minutes until what's next.
Yeah.
And you're not immersed anymore.
No, you're like, now you're in that next thing. Well, so this is contrasted to what you write here. You say, we said goodbye to the beast inside. That beautiful Chewbacca of hair and emotion is howling to the sky, and he has never needed a reason. He's calling you back to his forest moon. Like, that's the absolute juxtaposition to what you're describing, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's when you go back to imagine what life was like without trauma, I picture, when I wrote that, I was picturing a tribe, tribe of people that are living together, and what it would be like when there's no trauma. And I think when there's no trauma, people wouldn't be walking around with smiles all the time, with like a constructed smile that's
Right.
been installed from the beginning. I don't think it would be that way. I think that people would more just be emoting their state, the proper state that they're in at the time. If you're chopping wood, you may not be smiling. It doesn't mean you're not happy, but
Right.
smiling is not necessarily the right facial expression to have during that task. Same with building something or grappling with someone or whatever. There's a certain honesty that comes when you live in this Chewbacca state where there's no trauma dictating, oh, you got to be sensitive about Lindsay, or oh no, this osprey, you got to be careful about that cat. No. When you're constantly living in that state, not that we shouldn't, because empathy is important, but it sets up this new society, a false society that's placed on top of it, which has certain brittle pieces that change our behavior, and then we forget after a long time that they change our behavior. And then you have a village where everyone's smiling when it's pouring down rain.
Yeah.
And the second someone goes, I think this rain sucks, that person is now the scapegoat because everyone is pretending to smile all the time.
You can't
So
poke holes in the illusion or you're in trouble.
yeah, and that's the cannibalism. That's the same form of Wetiko that I'm talking about. It's this sort of moral cannibalism where it's the more you invest your falsity in the system, the more anger you're going to be at those who are not putting the same investment into the illusion. And so you end up with a society that's chemically mind controlling each of its own without anyone knowing it. Even though my book's called Blueprints of Mind Control, I wanted to call it Blueprints of Chemical Control because these are receptors that are responding to things that happen. A half a second is a huge universe of time. If you look at the limbic system is reacting to things in our environment at least a half a second before the neocortex is. There's this really stupid illusion that we're telling each other that our intellect is what's dictating all of what we do, that our reason is the thing that's in charge of what's happening around us all the time. And it's not. It's this chemical societal control that gets placed on us automatically as we allow this sort of zeitgeisty kind of preferential delegation system of virtue that gets replaced, so that then everyone who smiles gets rewarded. Anyone who complains gets cast out. You create a different system where now the zeitgeist itself, this faux human, which is sort of like the mean average of all the tribe, now becomes a living member that's living inside of everyone's head. And all of your actions are now based on, well, what would Zaidi, the zeitgeist, do if he saw me right now picking my nose? Or here it is about to be dinner time and I'm going to drop this trash down. These are natural functions that keep us in a society, but they also keep us under a wing of control where there's no physical, tangible person that's dictating these rules.
It's the
It's
concept of
inanimate object.
it's the concept of the panopticon, but in psychological form. Like that you're always being watched, you're always being recorded and measured and judged.
That's exactly it. It's a living demon. It's a living program that's been installed inside the psychic mind that's constantly waking up going, how come you're not smiling? You're not going to be picked for the grand parade or whatever. Next harvest. You're not going to get to carve the totem pole because you're not smiling. And if you think about how that transmutes long term, then now you see that you've just created a garden for psychopathy or narcissism or sociopathy. It really doesn't matter. You've created the exact same breeding environment for a new virus to birth, which is the opportunist. A predator is going to see how that zeitgeist works and use it as a hunting instrument, as a trident to pin the rest of us. And that's what gets me so frustrated in my efforts, because no matter how many times I try and explain that to people, people don't believe it. They don't understand that, well, no, why would, either they're in denial that someone would be out there that does that, which is amazing
At
because
this point, yeah.
look at how many of them are out there.
Yeah.
And B, it's such a fear that comes from it, because they realize just how much calories they would have to burn to stop listening to the zeitgeist and develop their own moral system. Well, I could guess wrong. What if I come out tomorrow and guess wrong, and someone catches me leaving a carbon footprint, something I didn't even know about? Then all of a sudden the zeitgeist is telling me, God, look how disgusting you are. That's so gross. Look at that. It's when you turn that off, two things happen. One, you get lonely, because now everyone is like, they can't handle you at all. And two, you become dangerous. You become very dangerous, because now you're able to walk in Saturday morning to the tribal council, and when you see everyone smiling, you're able to see through them all of a sudden. You're able to understand what the zeitgeist truly is and just how much it's affecting people. And you end up seeing the prana economy, something that I talk about in my second book, but you see this economy of what's really happening underneath. Because what we have on top, on the surface, is, well, you're a racist. But what we really have underneath is, will you hate me less? Will you please hate me less? Will you please hate me less? That's what toxic masculinity is. That's what you're a racist is. That's what you don't care about our troops is. That's what all this stuff is us constantly begging each other, will you please hate me less than society wants you to hate me? It's a totally different economy. It's a constriction spell. It's basically the first thing you do is you grab the victim's neck and you stop them from breathing. Or a better analogy is you kick them into a pit. I don't care who you are. If I kick you down into a pit, I don't care who you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how rich you are, how poor you are, how smart you are, how wise you are, how strong you are. It doesn't matter. If I push you into a pit, I know, without having to ask you, without having to look at your face, without having to read any kind of lie detector test, I know what your motivation is instantly. I know what you want. I know, without looking at you, what your goals are right now. The day before I pushed you in the pit, your goal was to go out and make wine and stick your member in women's members and do things like that. But now that you're in a pit, I know exactly what your goal is. I know what your desires are. And that's how constriction works. It's such a valuable, valuable way of controlling people. It's so simple. It's so freaking elementary. And it's so frustrating because so many people don't see it. So many people insist that I'm making this up somehow. That the most simple trick in the world is somehow not being employed by anybody. And it's literally the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's so obvious.
That's what I don't understand, how people cannot see that they're being herded and corralled and used and abused and manipulated and controlled. I mean, I get it, because it is easier not to. Because I think what the truth is that a lot of people actually do know. At some level, they know what's happening. But they, like you said, they can't admit it because of the calories it would take or the effort it would take to then, make things right in some way, or to live truly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why I talk about it as chemical mind control, because this is not a reason. Someone doesn't have they don't reasonably see my point. They chemically stop.
Yeah.
They chemically stop beforehand and go, whoa. You're questioning that. Wait, you're saying that bad people could have a badge? Whoa. No. You do like on TV, right? Like those, but they always get caught. I mean, they always, and if they don't, there's going to be a sequel. Someone's going to come back and get them. That's really the chemical part of it that's so bad. If you watch CSI Miami, I went to see my aunt, who's awesome, by the way. But watching CSI Miami, I realized completely, holy shit, this is why there's so many law enforcement shows.
It's like
on TV.
It's like that thing where you're being taught to love your captor. What's that called?
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome.
Yes, Stockholm syndrome. We're like obsessed with it.
You're being shown these beautiful images of satellites that are secretly tracking kidnappers that have found a way to read the fingerprints off the garden hose of the guy that drank water from a spigot 36 years ago. And meanwhile, in real planet Earth, you're like, 911, someone stole my car. And they're like, how dare you call us for that? Leave us alone. And it's just like, oh okay. The truth of looking at how the system actually works, the truth of understanding how the justice system actually works, like that's a perfect example. Like the truth of that, to really understand that half the incarcerated people in America there's no victim.
Yeah.
Like these are victimless criminals. It really does show you the truth of what it is. And most people are just like, oh, fuck that, man.
Yeah.
No, I don't accept that. I'd rather just not accept that. There's a safety when you pretend you're living in the jungle, you built a wall around it, and you think now you're safe from the jungle. But who do you think built the wall, man? Who do you think built this place that you're inside of? It's no different than saying, oh, I'm safe from the jaguars because I've been caught in a trap. And now I'm hanging, from a tree like a bag of bananas, waiting for whoever is going to come next. There's a safety in there. You're like, well, I don't have to worry about jaguars anymore.
And you know what to expect. You're going to be hanging there for a while.
Yeah. And if you're given, that's why I get so angry at people talking about slavery as if it involves chains or if it involves oppression. And there's no way that we would have a cotton industry if these people were like forcefully, physically, like 24/7 hour, forcefully, you will move your arm.
Yes.
And then you will move your next arm. And then you will take your fingers and utilize your underarm pincer here. And it's just like, no, that's not how fucking slavery works. The guy gets up and he's been told, if you do all this stuff, you can plant whatever you want here.
Yeah.
And then if I don't come pee on it, you can eat that. and we're looking today like, oh, thank God that's over. But what the fuck are we sharecropping but what we have right now?
Yeah.
I have a compound interest mortgage, which literally means, you can have this plot here. And as long as you do everything that I want, no matter when I want it or how I want it, I can let you pretend like this part is yours.
That's exactly.
It's no freaking different. It's no different at all. But yet we're under the impression because we see TV, we see the color purple, we see, oh, don't hit me, master. We see shit like that. And we think, well, that's how it must have been. When in fact, slavery was around in Rome. There were white guys all over Rome in slavery. This whole notion that we have about, oh, no, it's just so freaking bad.
And it's impossible to, it's like you're saying, it's ancient, it's worldwide, and it's still going on today. And I brought this up recently on my Facebook page, and it was one of the most contentious posts I've ever made, just to say that slavery is not just for African Americans and in the past. Just to say that was like blowing people's minds, and they were like, essentially calling me racist. And this actually relates to the next quotes I was going to read, which is about race. And you say, the gospel of history has revised with intellectual slander. The South's image has been and remains to this day a confederacy of racists. And later you say, slavery is humanity's world history. It is not a practice invented by the South. And finally you add, this kind of shame is harvested by the intellectual vampire, and it fuels the incinerators of individualism.
Yeah, the most dangerous thing America has is heritage. And I'm talking about what DC fears the most is heritage. What DC fears the most is us connecting to the soil, and that's why amnesia is so colossal. If you don't have memory, you're not going to connect to that memory. That's why amnesia is so crucial.
Well, and this connection between trauma and memory is something that just keeps coming up lately for some reason. So it's interesting you're bringing it up because I also have suffered from, we all suffer from trauma. That's what my last episode was about too. But that I didn't realize that that's probably why my memory is so awful. And I didn't realize then, and I'm glad you're bringing it up now, how that might apply on this mass level, Yeah,
it's crucial.
Yeah.
That's also why they talk about space a lot. because if they can get you dreaming, fantasizing about what's up instead of what's down, you're great. You're completely looking in the wrong direction.
You're cutting yourself off from your source, like literally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why they're saying, no, your footprint is made out of a black, dirty tar oil, and it's carbony and chalky. And I want you to picture that there's a white virgin sandy beach, and that's home. And you this cancer that's been dropped here. And everywhere you walk, these black tar footprints are left behind where you go.
Wow.
Meanwhile, you came here, you were freaking pond scum, and you were able to masturbate your way out of the water into some kind of monkey fish. Then that monkey fish was like, ooh, goo, goo. Then it had sex with a sloth like creature in a tree. And then you guys, incested yourself forever. But then somehow something terrible happened, like some accident. And then you ended up, with hair on your knuckles.
Yeah.
And it's, how dare you? How dare you? That's the picture that they want you to have.
I've never connected that footprint and being connected to the earth thing. That's really smart.
Totally. And if you can put a sheet of paper, if you can put that sliver, between the bottom of your feet and the earth, you can start to slide it and wiggle it around, and then you put them in a gyro. Next, you have relativity. This is a mental spell installed. The idea of special relativity gives you where you're now standing inside of a gyro, and if you're spinning fast enough, what is up to you is really going to be about what's comfortable, or to be more specific, what's less discomfortable.
Yeah.
Which is going to be more about where were you spinning that made you feel nauseous. If you were to stop spinning that way, you would feel less nauseous. Therefore, this must be my new true north. This must be my new compass point. That's why these ideas are crucial.
Yes. Absolutely
crucial. And they go back for 7,000 years. This is the oldest Kabbalistic spell you can imagine. It is the lie, the very first lie. What is a lie? But someone who's telling you one thing and meaning another. They're charming you with an inconsistency. They're using that connection, that empathic connection that you have with someone, i.e. trust, and they're using it as a manipulated, twisting tool. And if you just look at the chemicals, what would it be like to all of a sudden have to admit that someone you trust is doing that to you, like for the very first time? That you would live in a world where you're empathically able to trust and connect, but you're finding out that there's psychopathy out there. Most of us we're not going to want to buy into that. It would be no different than finding out that your parent was a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like after you've been weaned off this serial killer, and you're 14 and you've been told that, what are you going to do with that data? Like, seriously, right? It's not accurate to expect that, well, no, we'll just get over it. People will just get over it, and they do. And that's why the good guys win. It's gross.
Yeah, it's really awful. It reminds me when I was really young, I don't know, I was just like very trusting and happy and whatever. And for some reason, no one was ever mean to me until I was in like 4th grade. And then this girl walked up to me one day and just looked at me and said, "You're fat," and walked away. And I was like flabbergasted. I was like, what the fuck just happened? I was like, I did not understand. Like, my siblings had been mean to me, I guess, in some way, but like never like a stranger. And I just like couldn't understand it. It changed my whole worldview. I was like, wow, like anyone can just be mean at any time. This is wild. Like, why wouldn't we just be nice? Why wouldn't you just be nice to people? Like, I just didn't get it at all. And it was like that. It was like probably some early form of trauma.
Well, I think it's important to understand that it's not, the world isn't broken. Like, she did that to you, and that's important. Like, it's important that happens. It's important that trauma is allowed to echo, because it sort of points back to why we're here. Because otherwise, it wouldn't make sense that lies and deceit are pretty crucial in this matrix, if you think about it. And it's not just humans. If you look at a lot of animal life forms, there's a lot of natural law that's built around camouflage and around deceit. It's really a big important part of how our world works. So if you really, really look at it honestly, and I'm not saying this is comfortable, people get mad at me for looking at it this way, but if you just really look at the system as an observer and go, this is pretty much prevalent everywhere, it really makes you look more closely at, well, what are lies exactly? Like, that's a pretty big deal that you could even have something like that. Like, lies themselves are a dimension. Like, literally, there's a dimension of truth now that would not exist had we not have all these creatures that were utilizing the dimensions of what someone might see in truth and twisting that in some way. Like, there's a lot of math involved to set up a world where you could do that, which is why I think it's probably maybe the core reason why we're here. That we're here we're here born into this empathy, almost like you're born naked with like your genitals like really stimulated on full on like awareness, in the sense of that all of your senses are tapped into empathy. Like, seriously, it 98% of your brain lights up when you see another face, when you're just having a conversation with someone. Like, it's you're fully turned on when you're connected to somebody, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because of that, it really does make you wonder, well, if we have lies, and why would humans even be naturally developed into such trusting creatures? It doesn't make sense to me. It would make sense that if this truly was a pure chaotic environment where we're going to develop naturally, that we wouldn't be that way. Most of us would just be psychopathic, but instead we're not. It's something very different. And that's sort of like, to me, it's kind of like, yeah, you're going to go on the roller coaster, and then you're like, well, wait a minute. If I'm going to come right back here, why are you going to take me up this hill, then drop me down this other hill, then turn me in this corkscrew, and then spin me around here, and then spin me around here? Why don't you just open the gate and then let me out again?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how it would be if everyone was just honest. If we lived in this flat world where there was no lying, where there was no psychopathy, where there was no trauma echoes. These are really important things that alchemically we have to process as individuals. You know, we're sort of walking processors. We're processing our trauma all the time. So maybe by processing that trauma, maybe that's being uploaded somehow. The way our bones dissolve into the soil, maybe that soil is absorbing that, all that CSF, all the lessons that you have, those are being embedded in your bones, and then all that data is still being collected in some way and utilized in some way.
That's exactly how I think about it, but in a slightly different way than you're saying it, but like the exact same effect. Like, I feel like we're all here to do exactly that and to heal our own trauma and our ancestral trauma, our past life trauma, or however you want to think about that. And really, by doing that, we're healing the world's trauma, right? Because if you allow the trauma to then lead you into traumatizing other people, like, you're going to continue this and add to the pile. But like, you know, it's like things started falling apart at some point, and now we need to start like picking up those pieces and like reforming them into something.
Yeah, because if you wanted a really good human on your team, you wouldn't want someone who just blindly trusted you, because then you wouldn't have someone that had their own ability to lead. Yeah. So you don't really want a sheep. No. And you also don't want a pure, like, radical solo individual. You want someone that's going to be able to work with others. You want someone that's empathic, but has discernment. Yes. Someone who trusts people, but in exactly the perfect amount. Yes. And I think in a way that's why we're here, is that we're learning how to discern our own truth and trust for other people. And that's why I keep harping on sovereignty, because if you have sovereignty, you look at trust extended to someone else as a gift. Yes. Instead of a necessity, instead of a requirement for survival.
And you rescind that shit as soon as that person shows that they don't deserve it.
Yeah. You should make it expensive to lie. But we don't have a society like that. We have a society where it's profitable to lie because it's profitable to make someone feel better. And that feeling better is based on what I was talking about earlier. If you throw someone in a pit, if you constrict their breathing, their motivation is going to be, I want oxygen. Yeah. I don't want chili con queso and we're going to make it all day of this special recipe. No, I want oxygen. And the moment they wake up, you know what they want. And that's why you're going to constantly use trauma if you're a psychopath to get it, because if you keep them in that constant state, you know how to steer them. It's no different than a bridle bit in a horse's mouth, just in a human's mouth instead.
Yes. It's interesting because my favorite book is The Neverending Story by Michael Ende, and it's a German story in origin. It's been translated, and people think it's a children's book. It's not. If you go read it, it has deep, profound, occult, alchemical truths all throughout it. It's an amazing story, but everyone might know if you've seen the movie that nothing is destroying the universe. Basically, it's destroying imagination. It's destroying everything that exists. And do you remember what the nothing is made of? It's made of lies. So every time a human lies, the nothing gets stronger. So it's a really interesting corollary to like that's the whole problem of the whole book is this, and then it's tied into this internal journey that we all have to go through, basically to where we're not any longer able to lie to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because what is a lie? Like if you really look at the anatomy of the lie, if you carve open its belly and spread its rib cage, you'll see that it's really usury. Trust usury. A lie is a usury of trust. It is I'm borrowing, I'm getting into a business of loaning you trust. It's a weird, twisted kind of relationship that happens when you have a lie. It's a two-party situation. Both parties are accepting this loan of trust on something. In fact, it's a form of abandonment, because when you accept a lie from somebody, what you're truly doing is abandoning your own discernment.
Yeah.
You're doing that because you have your own doubts about your own self. And because of that, you're able to go, well, since I have these doubts about my own intuition, I should extend them here to this other part too. And as long as more and more people are lying out there, then it becomes this standard status quo. And that's why so many of us aren't willing. That's why it's chemical mind control, because so many of us are not willing to invest the calories in trying to discern who the fuck's telling the truth anymore.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's so many lies.
There's
so many. And that's the purpose of this. That's the reason why the lies will always work. That's the reason why there will always be a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie on top of a lie. Because no one out there is going to be able to stop anyone else from lying. Actually, that's not true. If all of us were to make it expensive to lie, it would end. But none of us want to make it expensive to lie. So we just allow it to go on.
Do you think there's something to, like, if you got to the place where you literally couldn't lie to yourself and wouldn't and couldn't, that then you could get, therefore, like, no one else could lie to you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because I feel like that's part of it. Like some integral part of it is like you're lying to yourself when you're accepting a lie. Because I feel like genuinely, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like genuinely, like we know on some level it's intuitive. Like we know when someone's lying to us. We know it's happening. We just like have buried it behind all the trauma and behind all of the, conditioning.
That's why I got quiet. That's why I got quiet, because I was trying to explain that piece.
Yeah.
That's a really important piece to it all, because I just had a friend lie to me a few weeks ago, and I was just like, you know what, we need to just like stop talking for a while.
Did your friend know that they were lying to you? Like, were they like, I'm gonna lie to James right now, or were they like caught in some sort of like delusion? Sorry if I'm derailing it by asking it.
Most of the time when someone lies to me, it's because they learned that lying was the right synapses a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying reason has nothing to do with this.
No.
I have nothing to do with this. Like it has nothing to do with me in the equation.
Right.
But it gets harder because none of the people that have lied to me like in a big way in the past have ever called me on the phone and been like, hey, it's been 4 years. I just want you to know I was lying to you. No one does that.
Yeah.
Instead, they triple down. They lay concrete on top. They fill it with support, fibercrete, the rebar, the whole thing.
Yeah.
They will build a fucking monument on top of that lie. Yeah. And that's why it gets very difficult, because the whole time as you're trying to tune in your discernment, you never really get any good feedback back from somebody that you were correct in assuming that. you really never have that. You have to just sort of keep going on faith. And that's what I think is really fascinating about this world, because it used to really bother me, like to the point of, hey, maybe I need to take some pills because this is really confusing what's true and what's a lie out there. Like, seriously, when I really started looking at this stuff, it took me a while to really understand, and then all of a sudden I got super comfortable with it. I'm never, ever, ever going to know the truth.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to even be able to say that to myself. But now that I know that, I feel so much more comfortable with it because I understand more why it's here. And it has a lot to do with slavery too. Slavery is not an accident. Slavery is a very necessary function when it comes to finding your sovereignty. In fact, I wouldn't say that slavery is immoral. I realize a lot of people might be, holy shit, you just said that. But seriously, I think that slavery is not immoral because I see that there are two people that are willingly entering into the process of slavery. There is a master and a slave, and both of them are inside of a slavery. The master is in the same form of slavery as the slave is.
Yeah.
This is a codependent relationship.
True.
If you were to look at an infant baby as it's trying to walk, it is going to enter into slavery with the cuffs of its father's or its mom's hand or her pants. It's going to do what it can to stand up and utilize what it can to be taller, to make itself less crawly. Mm-hmm. As it gets better at that, it will overcome its slavery. In fact, it will reject its slavery and even get mad and say, I hate you, Dad. You don't understand me.
Yeah.
But the whole time it was building itself through slavery off that system. And then it had to find its sovereignty by rejecting its master. That rejection process is crucial to finding our sovereignty. It's no different than if you were to look at a branch on a tree. The tree branch is growing and all of a sudden there's a new sprout and it grows. Well, a second sprout can't come right there where that sprout is because both are going to choke each other out. So instead, the next sprout shoots at a tangent and it goes in a different way. That's why I think our individuality, no matter how great of a parent you are, you're always going to have your child, if they're healthy, they're going to be forming a tangent route from you. They're going to look for a 90-degree tangent from your own core, from your own morals, and purposely reject that and cling to this 90-degree tangent so that they can find their own sovereignty, so that they can push themselves out far enough into their own light and become their own tree. It's like really, really crucial step.
It makes sense to me because it's this thing that which has also been coming up a lot lately, but this idea that like the sort of trickster or the like Lucifer sort of like, you know, archetype is really there not to be this like asshole that tries to fuck you up, but like to put like these challenges in front of you that are like, they feel really oppressive in the moment. And you're like, why is this happening to me? But then afterwards you're like, oh, wow, I got something ridiculously valuable out of that. And then I proved to myself that I'm capable and that this thing inside of me that I wasn't sure if it was or not is like really there. And so like, this is actually a better version of me now. And so that strain like produced something good. Not that I, you know, I'm not trying to say I like suffering or that I want people to like torture each other or whatever. I'm just like, I get that like process, you know, of where something can seem really oppressive, but actually lead to sovereignty.
Well, yeah, any kind of core Buddhist thought's going to start with that mantra that, you know, life is suffering basically. And that there's enlightenment that comes out of that. I don't buy into that. Because suffering itself isn't like this axiom. It's not like there's this pole of suffering where all of us just are born and we know that. We only know suffering because we have these like amazing moments, you know, in life with the perfect sunset or the perfect orgasm with the perfect drink or the perfect meal or the perfect company or the perfect event. It's those events are what makes, you know, the torturous side, whatever that might be, torture, painful. True. It's only the reaction.
Only in comparison.
Situations. Yeah. You look at a dung beetle. What does a dung beetle do all day? He literally rolls his own shit into a ball and scoops it up. And I mean, like, if that's all he's known, he's not going to be like, how dare you complain? All I do is dung my own poop. You know, he doesn't see life that way. It's not like, oh, well, life sucks because of who I am or what it is I have to do. You know, life's going to suck because there's a literal vacuum inside your auric field somewhere. And that vacuum is going to be in your auric field based on where you're in your body, you've evacuated yourself. And if you can find where you've evacuated yourself in your body, you're typically going to be able to, again, like we were talking earlier, you're going to cure the amnesia, you're going to remember.
Yes.
And by remembering that spot, that's going to clear the blockage. And your auric field is going to repair itself, your egoic field. The ego is like so important. This is why they shame it so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad how they shame the ego. That's really the core of my book, Blueprints of Mind Control, in my opinion, is that I need people to really understand what ego is, how important ego is, how beautiful your ego is, how evil Freud is.
I know.
For telling you the exact opposite.
I know that Ben Balderson is watching right now and that he's like shouting agreement with you because he agrees that with that statement that your ego is not this negative, evil thing. And on that note, because you mentioned shame, and I have this quote by you here, and you say, the spellcraft of shame bypasses scrutiny in the name of compassion. And later you say, your faith and your ability to discern truth is the biggest threat to the black magician. It's all tied up together there.
Yep. Because if you're tapping into your bones, you're really tapping into your ancestors, you're tapping into your genetic roots. And now you're looking at a tuning fork that stretches back to the beginning of time. Your DNA chain is only existing today because it's been alive in some form since the beginning of time. So there is a eternal wisdom to you. Even more so, we're not created. We're unfolded inside the fractal of life. Yeah. It's not like the world was created and then we were installed here in some foreign entity. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. We are the living soil. We are a living reflection of what's around us. I personally think it's bullshit. In fact, there's some Russian cosmonaut reading you could do that suggests this might be true, but that the higher you go above the earth, it's very hard to stay conscious, to literally stay conscious. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because we are tied into the soil more than we know.
Like literally the earth is our consciousness.
Yeah. It's no different than being away from a certain Wi-Fi signal.
Yeah.
Or being away from, far enough away from a certain, from your certain origin point that you're not going to be able to render yourself for who you are. Because all we are is a reflection of our environment. We're a prism of our environment, not prism of our environment, of everything that we're around and everything we know. This is going to sound, I have figured out a way to say this eloquently. I haven't even tried, but I went to college as philosophy, pre-law. Like I really believed in morality and ethics and these tenets, these axioms.
Yeah.
I've thrown all that shit away. Mm-hmm. I don't even believe in morality or ethics anymore. And I'll tell you why, because I can think of so many different moral conclusions that would never, ever, ever fit into a pre-prescribed battle plan. Well, if you're ethical, you will have this code before you go out. And then no matter what you encounter, you will always follow this code. Morality is a codex, but ethics is an empathic connection, or empathy is an empathic connection. In other words, there's a difference between being connected to the environment versus having a codex that you're going to follow, that you're going to use to pretend that you're somehow righteous now.
Yeah.
As you followed this book. Like there's such a blindness that comes along with that it really, really gets really difficult for me to stay in that realm and pretend. That's why when people are like, well, James, what about, natural rights? And I'm like, there's no such thing as natural rights in the sense of how humans do it. It's none of us have agreed that, you get to say whatever you want to say all the time. No, that's not what happened at all. In fact, Kabbalists have said the exact opposite. Look at the freaking Bible. It replaced the word Yahweh with Lord. I mean, they're just like, no, you can't even say this freaking word. It's this myth. I think these are myths that we're telling. These are almost like fantasy story tales that we tell ourselves that make us feel that there's still justice in the world, when literally it's the exact opposite. We could have justice, but it's going to be natural law. It's going to be something very different than what we're calling justice right now. But we're so far away from that because we've already evacuated ourselves so long ago. So long ago. We're so far away from that Chabakan forest that we would never even think that we could trust ourselves to have our own form of justice,
Isn't that
to have
crazy?
our own form of natural law.
This is what I don't understand about people too, is I'll have people literally tell me like, well, we need censorship because we can't decide what like people need to hear, and there's like people out there spreading fake things, and then it's causing this and that, and so we need someone to tell us like what to think and how to think it. And I'm like, you literally just told me that you don't believe that you're capable of discerning what you should think or not about anything that comes into your sphere. You need someone else, and what makes them better than you? What makes you think that they have more skill, or you know what I mean? Like, you're telling me that. You are saying that to me.
Yeah, and that's
crazy.
The prana economy. But it's not crazy if you look at it from the prana economy. I mean, if you really look at what's happening, what they're saying is that I'm not willing to spend, or actually a better word to say is, I don't have 700 extra calories to spend every day trying to decide who's telling the truth and who isn't. It's just too hard. I'm just going to go along with the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
It's going to work out better for me. If the queen wants it, if the hive demands it, I'll do it. There is a pattern of comfort that I've found in there. And that comfort is found purely from the flow of dopamine.
Yeah.
It's actually not even from the flow. It's purely from the constriction of receptors that would stop dopamine. Like that's literally how the hive works. Is the hive's literally saying, okay, so all the dopamine you would have gotten by living out in the jungle and like running free and like, you know,
eating whatever you find,
your genitals at jaguars in the middle of the day or whatever, all that is gone, and you're trading that for this system. And in this system, you're going to have certain things, and these certain things are going to be pretty much kind of mostly provided for me. And you're just like, okay, as long as you don't violate it too much, as long as if I bitch just enough, you'll wait just long enough, and then you'll reveal, or then you'll let go, or whatever. And that's what you're looking at now in politics. That's what you're looking at with the red blue, the two towers. It has to be two towers. It has to be. There's no other way you could do it. People don't have the attention span to play this game with three towers. It's two. So imagine a cat, right? And instead of him giving one laser light that he's chasing, like throw like 11 laser lights all around. I mean, the cat's going to be like, fuck this. Like, I'm not playing this game. Like, no, there's no way. I'm only going to chase that because I'm under the impression that it might be something that I can catch.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I'm chasing it. And if you run it too fast, I'm going to get bored with it. You need to run it just slow enough where I think I can get it.
Yeah.
Humans are the same way.
Yep. This is why I get concerned about this upcoming, seemingly massively constructed and foreseen and intentional civil war or whatever. Because I'm like, this is just another version of that game where they're like, yeah, if you come fight us for it, then you might get something out of this. But actually, that's like, we're still not going to get what we want from that game. I think.
There's 16 countries in near full revolt right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's really naive for people to pretend that that's organic.
Yeah.
To pretend that the Hong Kong protests are like completely organic.
Well, I liked what you said about that. You're like, why is every picture from there like perfect? It's perfectly staged.
Cinematography, yeah. It's like a bow and arrow. But it's not just a bow and arrow. It's like a bow and arrow with like a glow-in-the-dark freaking arrow thing that's like on the front. It's going to chase it. Seriously, like as they're shooting the arrows, they're having a cinematic like slow shot with like a low f-stop with a really high expensive lens that's shooting this like slow arc of these arrows that are going across. And the whole time, every shot is like these just heroes, you know, just like in the Heisman Trophy pose.
Yeah.
It's a napalm canister. And every story is beautiful, you know. Oh, and they thwarted them by the power of the internet, by installing this new app, which you can download right here, that we're printing it on the state-run newspaper. It's like, yeah! And meanwhile at home, people are like, fuck yeah!
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, the revolution is here, and it's going to end at 5 because I have to go to work.
Yes.
It's the perfect revolution ever. So it's that's what's happening all around us, and that's why I get so mad at the QAnon stuff. That's why I get so frustrated, because it's so obviously baited.
And it
It's
just
just
keeps you going and going
God,
and
it's so
going.
obvious. And the more you tell people, the more you realize it's a chemical addiction. They're chemically addicted to this. This is reasoning means nothing. Which is funny, because that's why I wrote the book the way I wrote it. Blueprints of Mind Control is an emotional draw.
It is.
It's an emotional trawling through your deep sea. It pulls you up from underneath. It doesn't start with, let's intellectually analyze the political spectrum. It's like, no, fuck that. It's like, dude, here's how trauma works. Here's how you control someone. People are thoroughbred horses. They are freaking horses, thoroughbred. Two things, crook and a flail. Crook's the gentle way of pulling someone's neck. The flail's to beat the shit out of them. You can lead someone with shame and fame. Two things. It's always two masks. It's always two. It's always a red and blue.
Yeah.
It's always a black and white. It's always a good guy, bad guy. It's always white hat, black hat. It's always the exact same way. Crook and flail. That's why every pharaoh is like buried with these freaking crook and flail. That's how you lead people. Is you dole out the crook one day and the flail the next day.
Well, and it's like
Trump
this
versus Hillary. It's the perfect crook and flail.
And it's the false dichotomy, right? Which is, it's illogical. It's like there can't be just these two things going on. So there's this third way, which is beyond that, or maybe below it, or behind it, or whatever, beyond it, which is just not playing their game.
Imagine how hard it is to like take a family to Baskin Robbins and get everybody to agree on like one ice cream flavor.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, seriously, like you're looking at like a 4-week event.
Yeah.
With like
you have to reach like consensus.
Are really pissed off about it, for a couple kids are going to be like named differently because they chose the wrong thing. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to pretend, and on top of all that 250 million of us can choose between one of two colors. I mean, for real.
Yeah.
It's insane that we're walking around pretending this is real.
Yeah.
It's insane that we're pretending that the media is not an extension of the government. It's insane for us to pretend that when you see a tabloid that says, oh, the queen has bat children secretly in a cave somewhere, that means that we can scrutinize the elite. These are illusions that are purposely, it doesn't take much to put that out.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to make it look like the elite are actually face justice. How does it do it? You put out a few episodes of CSI.
Yeah.
You outfit every Hollywood who will paint the military in a positive way in the military with all the free planes and jets and trips they want to come film here, come film here. You have a CIA that doesn't just infiltrate the Hollywood. They produce their own game shows. They produce their own movies. They produce their own shows to broadcast this.
Literally.
Literally. It's such a dumb idea for people to pretend that the media and the government aren't the same.
Yeah. And
if they weren't the same, that neither one of them would go, hey, if we linked up, we'd fucking rule the world. There's 5 media corporations. It's not even like it would be that hard.
No.
It's like we're seriously pretending that not only has no one thought of it, but it's also like the simplest thing you could possibly do in the world.
Yeah.
You could literally print all the money you want, no one would care, and you could buy whatever company you wanted with all that money you just printed, and now you own that company. And which, when you own that, you own the zeitgeist. This is why zeitgeist is so crucial. Because if you can control the zeitgeist, you control everyone else who's living under the shadow of the zeitgeist. That's how they control us. That's why archetypes are so crucial. That's why there's certain people in our world that are archetypes, that they're placed in these roles as archetypes. Because those are like gear shift knobs. You can grab that person by the head and go, let's invoke Jane Fonda, and let's invoke Oprah, and let's invoke Hillary Clinton. All these are gears and transmissions that you can use to move the zeitgeist. And if you move the zeitgeist enough, you'll move everyone else that follows the zeitgeist. And any community that starts to lose their ability to follow the zeitgeist, all you got to do is run into a public school and kill a few kids.
Yes.
Broadcast that on television, and everyone's going to run back into the zeitgeist again.
You maybe don't even have to kill them. You just have to say you did.
You don't even have to kill them. But I have to pretend that we do that.
Yeah.
I have to do that because I have to hold them responsible for what they're saying.
True.
That's another thing that makes this really hard, is because we're having to unwrap history all the time. And people are like, well, James, how do you know that civilization is truly that old? And the answer is, I don't know.
I don't know.
But what else am I supposed to do? What else am I supposed to do? If I cannot, the only way I can destroy the zeitgeist is just to keep showing you how much it lies.
Yeah.
The only way I can show you how much it lies is by using the very truth that it gave you earlier to refute the next truth that is coming out now. Perfect example of that is the ISS, the International Space Station, where you've got like Russian astronauts calling in on the anniversary of us landing on the moon saying, yeah, there's water bears on the solar panels outside, these microbial tardigrades.
Tardigrades.
And you're just like, in outer space, like, yeah, come pick. And are you freaking kidding me? Is that where we're going now? And it shows you that, yeah, they'll just lie on top of it. It's no problem.
Yeah.
That's why a few years later they came out. It turns out the moon is inside of Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
How big the atmosphere is. And that's why there's tardigrades. Meanwhile, the Italian astronaut, he picks the day, just like the Russian one picked the day of the Apollo landing. The exact same thing. The Italian astronaut waits for the anniversary of Mars landing and calls in and says, yeah, I was out cleaning the ISS and I almost drowned. It's like tons of water. Yeah, filled up with water. And these are countries that are playing this international game of blackmail with each other, where there's been these lies that have been implemented. Lies are crucial to blackmail. If you want to survive as a psychopath, you're going to have to trust other psychopaths. But you can't trust another psychopath because he's a psychopath. He's going to lie to you. So the only way you can trust anybody is to have a blackmail situation. You need something that you can blackmail each other on. The most obvious way to come up with something that you can blackmail two people on is to create a lie in public where both of you are pretending to be in the lie. That way, if one of you breaks code or oath with the other person can just expose the lie that you've told. That's why I keep saying over and over again that countries aren't what we think they are. What you're really looking at is all the nuclear countries that are out there that we call nuclear are basically countries that have entered into muerto. That's the mafia term for I will not tell. It's this secret code that you're made. You know, if you kill enough people in the mafia, you're made. And once you're made, other people aren't going to mess with you. Nuclear countries are basically that system of being made. The 33 countries that have aligned on Antarctica are basically these inner mafia that's running all these countries, but pretending to be separate countries so that they can justify their lies with each other. The space program is a perfect example of that. The only reason why America got in the space program was because a year earlier Sputnik was launched, and we were told that if we didn't get in the space program, we were all going to have our faces melted off by Russian commies from outer space that were going to kill us all. It's this mutual lie is able to steer an entire world zeitgeist. It's just that effective.
I love that you point out that they're nuclear too, because like nuclear, like the center of something, you know, that around which everything is sort of gravitating, and it's like you need a few of those around the world to keep everyone like gravitated in the same.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I hadn't thought about that. It's actually the same as globalism. If you look at what the word globalism really means, it's a Tower of Babel. It's putting everyone under this idea or inside of this globe, basically.
Yuck. It's awful. Well, when you were talking about archetypes, by the way, on Tuesday, everybody listening, we're doing the Green Man archetype panel discussion. So if you want to come back for that, that's going to be a really good discussion about archetypes. But earlier today, I was, again, talking with Michael Wan, and he brought up the idea that the president is this just very simply the father archetype. And I was like, how have I never thought of this? Like, they destroyed all of our fathers, you know, over the course of many decades. And so we're all fatherless, basically. Most of us are. And then some way most of us would like some father figure in our lives. And then they give us this father, and you know, it's always the tallest and like the most strapping sort of like person who can pull off this, you know, this
our founding fathers. Yeah, literally
our founding fathers, right?
Washington
and I'm like, I never made that connection somehow. It's such a simple archetype, and it's so obviously like basic to who we are as beings that it's a powerful one, and here it is, you know, used to control us. All right, let's pick a random somewhere. Oh, I love this. If I were a psychopathic cabal with $21 trillion, I would probably build a reptilian space pope. My space pope could tell the whole world how bad they've been. It would say to us, we destroyed our environment and it had no choice but to stop us. My space pope would convince all of us we were incapable of governing ourselves. It would tell us to dissolve our ego and enroll in its ascension program.
Yep.
I love this. And it fits in with the same archetype, right? This is our
Yeah,
it's our
so
global
Messiah,
father or something.
You've got a Messiah archetype there too, which is really, I remind people that before the idea of theism, of this like one central Messiah, Messiahs were a dime a dozen. They were literally in competition. There was, just like we have America's Got Talent, and back in Rome, it was, Rome has Messiah, and it was, everyone was like, I'm the Messiah. They weren't calling themselves that. The point is that they were pushing truth, and each of them were, if they became popular, they would basically take on that moniker of Messiah, someone who was bringing the truth, someone who's bringing the light in to something. So it's that shows you the power of the archetype to sort of step up into the zeitgeist, and use it as a way of escalating, or manipulating your environment around you, is through that archetype. But keep in mind that was only with theism, because before theism, this idea that there could be only one of this Highlander quickening game.
Yeah.
Really, that's literally
That
what
is
we
what
have
it
going
is.
on, is we have the quickening that's happening.
Right.
That's been happening. And Kabbalists did this. They knew this a long time ago. But the quickening came in when we started to say one Lord. There can be only one Lord. And the Old Testament is basically an entire book of where you started off with 35 pagan gods, and at the end you had one.
This is the Highlander game.
And yeah, it was a literal Highlander games unwrapping itself before us. That creates that same Wetiko, that same kind of cannibalism, because when you think there could be only one, it's like a staring contest. You end up in this staring contest with someone else, and you both are convinced there could be only one, and only one of you is going to be the one that doesn't blink. It creates this state of hunger inside of you, because you now feel desperate. That staring contest has been installed so deeply that we're born into it genetically, where this is why sin is such a flail, to be told that no, it's not just that you sinned, Lindsay. It's that you were born in sin.
Yeah.
It's that you came out of the womb pre-sun, pre-sin, that's how bad it is. So there's a taint to you that is so deep you could never rub it out of your skin. Therefore, you create this instant staring contest from the moment you're born, because you're constantly under the fear of, I wasn't worthy. I have a blood oath to another person. Not only was it another person, but it was like a really special person that's like so much better than anything that I could possibly be. But he had to be murdered because of just how bad I am. Yeah. That's creating a blood oath. It's creating a blood cult, blood oath with somebody. And that's a really, really bad codependency that gets placed on us. Meanwhile, because Jesus is an astringent, it's a very, very valuable tool that we can use. It's like a mental leptis sort of tool we can administer, because when we accept Jesus, we use it as a healing, cleansing sort of thing. It's a pranic magnet where we're able to invoke Jesus, and Jesus will pull the forgiveness, the thing that's stopping us from forgiving ourselves. It will literally pull that out of us. So it's a very important tool. But that same archetype, that same tool set, the Christ consciousness, was twisted into this blood oath. And the chosen people was literally installed inside the blood oath. It's like, not only do you owe your life to this man that was killed because of how bad you are, but he wasn't even just a man. He was like the man. He was like the ultimate man that will ever come, that ever will come, that ever could come, that ever should come. And because of how bad you are, that fucker had to suffer. It's just like the mind fuckery is so deep, man.
Really profoundly deep. And it's in all of us. Well, I love this. I love this for a bit of empowerment. You say confidence comes from the decisions we make with our body, not our brain. The body electric is a three-piece band. Our lungs are its pipes, our heart is its drum, and the mind plays the strings.
Yep.
I love this. This is like that, same connection we have to the earth or whatever. We're like, because I think the earth has those same exact tools. And whenever I talk about magic, I point out that those are the three instruments you have to play basically to get, magic to work, however you want to think about that.
Yep. There's a Schumann resonance to the earth. There's the earth has its there's a magnetic pulse. It has, just like our body has these three rhythms, so too does the earth.
Yeah.
And there's a trinity at work here. Again, the trinity's been tainted. It's been twisted around a little bit. But there's a trinity that goes into every one of your decisions. And that trinity is sort of like a joystick mouse, because it's got an X, a Y, and a Z. So, you're going to line up your decisions with all three of those vectors. And those vectors are going to make you hopefully a good person, hopefully, do the right decision based on all three of those vectors, your heart, your mind, and your gut, what all three of those want. The gut is such a subtle voice, though, that it's easy that's why sigil work, that's why language is so bad. And I know I'm a writer, but language is just so bad.
Oh, I'm with you as a writer. I'm like, words are also as misleading as they are effective in communicating.
They're so loud, they ring in your head, and you're not able to do anything else. And I know this because when I try and write, I can't be in the room with any other words. Like, that's how powerful they are. If words are happening in the room while I'm trying to write my own words, I can't do it. It just shows you just how loud they are, how obnoxious they are. But you can be in the middle of a bird song where you're listening to 15 birds and you're trying to hear who's talking to who and who's upset today and who's having a great day, and what the crow thinks of all this. All 15 of those conversations that you're trying to listen to can be thwarted with one person going, James.
Yeah.
just that word, you're now fucked, and all you are is, I am that sigil.
Yeah.
And you enter into this contract again where now you're following these. Instead of a river, you're following a bunch of plastic cups that are full of water. It's technically still the same, but it's really not.
Isn't that fascinating that you can be listening to all these birds and be writing? You can be listening to a beautiful symphony and still be writing, right? But you can't be listening to words and still be writing.
Yeah, it shows you just how loud and obnoxious, I would say. That's probably the best word to say it. If you imagine the timbre of the sound in your head, that words are by far the most staccato, the most obnoxious, and the hardest to maintain or keep anything else that's happening underneath it. I've noticed if you really, really want to tap into this, go to a foreign country. And so try and peel that away from just the travel, because when you travel, more dopamine is going to flow. But I think you'll notice that if you can't read the signs in the street, and if you can't understand what the people are saying, you fit in so much more deeper. You're so much more calm.
Yeah. You're
so much more into the rhythm of the travel, because there's not all these sigils. They don't mean shit to you. It's just drawings. It's just drawings with curlicues of different letters placed in different ways. And the cab driver that's driving you, all you hear is the staccato in his voice and the drawl he has in relation to someone else. It becomes a very, very, that's where I think the prana economy, you can really see what I mean. I can't stress that enough. The prana economy is real. There's a real life energy happening underneath our words.
Absolutely.
And when you get into a situation where you're surrounded by people that don't speak your words, you truly see that. You truly understand who you're talking to, what their motivation is, how easy or hard is it going to be for you to get them to bring you some ice cubes, for example, or whatever it is you're asking for. You automatically know beforehand, because you're not getting lost in their sigil words. You're not getting lost in their fake smile going, welcome to Denny's, can I help you? You don't know really what they mean by that. When they say, welcome to Denny's, may I help you? You don't really know what they mean. What they probably mean is my boyfriend's doing meth right now behind the dumpster.
Yes.
I need to fucking go out there and figure out what he's going to do. You don't know that.
Absolutely.
Because you're too busy lost in the sigil of, well, no, she said, can I help you? No,
Yeah.
she's here to help me. That's her goal.
Well,
That's why she's here right now.
that's interesting that so it's only with words that we can lie, right? Because if you're ever like what you're talking about, if you're actually like engaged with somebody and you're in your empathy fucking channel and you're like connected with them, then like there is no lie there that can't even occur because you would know it, you would feel it, and you would call it out. But with the words, you can lie, you know. And if you hang out with like if you're hanging out with a baby, right? Like the baby doesn't have words yet, and the baby, like, but you know exactly, or I do at least, and I think somebody who would sit long enough with a baby would also know, you know what the baby is like wanting and doing and saying, really. Like the baby's like, hey, like, give me this block, you know, I want to like put it down here. And like, will you like, okay, now point me out that window because I want to see the tree or whatever. Like, you just know, and he didn't have to say anything to you at all for you to know it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would maybe even go so far as to say that it's silence really that you can't lie. Like,
Yeah.
you can emote with someone in silence, and I wish more of us did that. I do this with clients a lot. We'll have like these somatic sessions because I'm trying to get them to understand if you tap into prana economy with all the people that you're dealing with, you can do that. You have to get in a quieter state, and you just have to realize that none of the words that are coming out of anyone's mouth can be trusted, or can be looked at as being steered from the engine room. It's not. Words are a plastic steering wheel in the back seat, and our id is inside there, and we can honk and it makes noise and we can yell shit out the window. But just like in Cannonball Run, it looks like the monkey's driving, man. It looks like the freaking monkey is the chauffeur and he's driving this thing. But no, the real driver's in the back. It's something else entirely. And that's what I think Blueprints of Mind Control is all about. It's tapping into that. There's an intuition. There's this Chewbacca that has been, all of his hair's been shaved and it just keeps growing out in really ugly ways. And you keep trying to put pants on him and he keeps coming home and they're gone again. Your intuition doesn't want pants. Your intuition doesn't want to live in these world of sigils. And more importantly, the longer you put that intuition in with those sigils, the more blind you're going to make it, because you're going to keep telling it, no, listen to the words. She said she wants to help you. The whole time it's like, telling you, man, that guy's doing crank. He's right outside right now. I don't think this is a good idea to order hash browns from this lady right now. I just don't like the idea of what's going to happen with the hash browns, you know. But we're taught, no, you're wrong, man. You got to fucking go along with it, you know. Or no, this is we're saving the Iranian people, James. Don't you get it? we have to go in there and bomb the shit out of them. They need our help. We have to it's like, hold still. I'm going to give you this vaccine. It's a freedom vaccine. You're going to freaking like it. You're going to like it or we're going to kill you. Either one.
Yeah, you like choose.
You
free
can die.
Choice. Yeah. It is crazy. Well, I like this idea that, you know, people they're more connected, more silent, you know, sit with themselves, put your feet on the earth. Like, you really will know, because people will ask, like, well, how do I know though then? Like, how do I learn, like, how to follow my intuition? And I'm like, all you have to do is get quiet enough. All you have to do is find enough space, enough time, enough quiet, enough solitude, and you'll know. Like, you'll feel it. It's literally a feeling in your body that you have. 100% of humans have it. But it's also amazing how few people will then go out and try it. When you tell someone, like, you can see auras, do it like this, like, nobody actually goes out and tries it. If you tell them, like, you're going to feel better, you're going to feel less anxious and less depressed if you go out and you put your feet on the earth, but they won't do it. It's like, you can know whether something's true or not by just asking yourself and sitting with it long enough with the feeling of it, but people won't try it.
I recommend that people always try this somatic work first on strangers, because when you do it with someone you know, you've got an economy already built up.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to change the economy with someone that you know.
That makes sense.
Stranger. But the best way to do it, I think, is the next time you're talking to a stranger, and this is going to sound selfish, but it's actually going to make you more empathic, which is less selfish. So please just look at this as a long-term goal. But when you're talking to a stranger, one thing you can do is to stop giving visual cues or feedback to that person for a while, just long enough to literally listen somatically to what their body's saying. And the only way you can listen to what they're saying with their body is to listen to your own body And you can't listen to your own body if you're too busy giving uh-huh, 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 uh-huh. Now I realize that that's what we're used to, that we give each other these cues all the time.
I've been doing it this whole time.
but what you're really doing when you're doing that is that you're cutting off your ability for your intuition just to listen, because you want to reassure them. But I'm here to tell you that maybe the lack of assurance should be felt for a moment. Maybe it's really important that they don't feel assurance after every statement they make. Because if you're going to keep saying, they're going to now feel like, oh, it doesn't matter what I say to them. Well, what I mean by that is that they're going to assure me out of obligation. It's a usury sort of assurance. Do you see what I mean?
You're training them.
You're telling them, you're giving them a chit, a free pass that says, feel free to slip in anything dishonest here, because it doesn't even matter.
I'm gonna keep nodding.
I'm not gonna somatically listen to what you're saying. Instead, I'm just going to go ahead and just, pretend like I'm giving you all my energy and awareness, all my plasma, when in fact I'm not. What I'm doing is I'm waiting for me to talk, so then you can say So the prana economy is, hi Lindsay, I would like to get 15 ahas from you. Like seriously, that's literally what the prana economy is. And I come to you in the morning, Lindsay, over coffee, because I know you're going to give me so many more ahas than Joe is. Yes. I know you are. And if I try and do that with Joe, he's going to stop me after the third aha and be like, are you sure about that? Blah, 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 blah. And then I'm going to have to give him 7 ahas before I can get back into getting my ahas again. I'm telling you, this is the prana economy, and you can see this. And you can see this when you just start cutting people off. And I'll tell you, when you start cutting people off, like I said, it might sound like you're being mean, but you'll actually really be able to notice. You'll be able to look at someone and go, is your cat okay? And then be like, oh, what do you mean? It's like, well, last Thursday, I remember you mentioned you're not gonna know where this came from. You're not gonna know where this came from. It's coming from your bones. Yeah. It's coming from your intuition. Why? Because you're somatically, telepathy is a real thing. It's not this sci-fi thing that we pretend we have, that if you take the right pill in the future, we're going to be able to have it. Telepathy is empathy. You and I can have a telepathic connection through empathy. And during that conversation, I will sympathetically feel pains that you have because I'm connected to you empathically.
Absolutely.
And vice versa. But if I keep saying I'm not actually allowed to see where your pain is, because I'm automatically just giving you, it's no different than being a waiter and you've got like a table, and no matter what that fucker does, you're going to keep that glass full of water. You're never ever going to let them like get down. You're never going to know if they're thirsty. You're never going to know how much water they're drinking. You have no clue what their thirst preferences are. It doesn't matter, because you're just going to sit there and just keep filling the fucking glass up. Even if they're in the middle of a conversation, even if they have their water just right, it just doesn't matter. When instead, you will start to notice, if you just cut all that off, you'll start to see, hey, this person doesn't really drink that much water. Or this person's really thirsty. Or this person is hungry, or they need this or need that. And then that's when the telepathy really kicks in. And once you have the telepathy, you don't have to ask questions. You'll literally just start grabbing salt and placing it on the table 3 seconds before they're like, can I have the salt? Yeah. And the more you practice that, the more empathic you're going to be. And the more empathic you're going to be, that's when people start coming to you and they don't know why. And they're like saying, James, I'm hungry. Like, not for food, but they're like, they want something else. They understand that. And you're going to run off a lot of people that are just there for ahas.
Yes.
Because they're going to come in and be like, well, fuck, I'm not getting shit from him. And in fact, he made me feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
But they also know where to get a straight answer. They also know if they really, really want to feel like, if I really, really want to know how this is going to affect me, I'm going to ask James, because I don't know why, but I'm going to ask him, and he's not going to just give me something back. He's just going to be with me. He's going to emote that with me. How am I going to emote it? By not filling the fucking room. By allowing the silence to talk to both of us. By allowing this prana economy to brew underneath, where you'll start to feel like, sometimes you'll feel like little sweat bubbles like pull up like right here of your forehead. But you're like, but I'm having a conversation with someone about something mundane. Why is that? And that's when you can really start to tap into yourself and go, why do I have this feeling right now when I'm talking to Lindsay? What is it about what she just said that's causing that? Why do I feel that in my stomach? And when you start to really look at that stuff, you'll get wrong sometimes for sure. But a lot of times you'll find that you were so right the fuck on that like 3 weeks later, those people are still, they're kind of blown away that you were able to help them in that way. What I mean is that sure, it looks like you're starving them, but actually you're creating a much more deeper empathic connection with them because you're telling them,
Amen.
if you get an from me, Lindsay, it's because you fucking earned it. Man.
Yeah.
Because it was the best I could possibly give you at that time. Instead of me just beholding you in this moment. But we live in this culture where some people, when I talk to them in the middle of talking, I realize I can't let too much silence pass. Like I like to inject silence. It doesn't look like it because I talk a lot, but I like to inject silence into the conversation. But sometimes you have that with someone else and they won't let that.
No.
They see that silence as a threat. They see that it's almost like a card game where it's like, oh shit, it's my turn. It's like speed chess or something.
Yes. Gotta fill it up.
Those are the people that are going to create that zeitgeist mentality, that Wetiko in you, that cannibalism in you, because they're going to get you revved up where you're just like, and then there's going to be like, and no one's going to get anything done. No one's going to have a telepathic, empathic connection. Yeah. Instead, all they've done is they've had a quickening happening where two people only had so many and one of them left with more than the other one.
Yes. It's absolutely true. And as you're describing this, I'm thinking of like the most serious moments in my life, you know, like when you're having this very important conversation with somebody, and not that this isn't, but obviously here there's also some level of adopting a role because I'm like the host of this show or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like if I'm like chilling with somebody and we're talking about something deeply important, like my response is not to nod and my response is to actually pause and stare at them and not move and just like sit and wait. You know, and I've never thought about it before, but it's absolutely true. And so at some level, I'm like, have been doing this, you know, especially in those moments, I'm like turning that on, like wait and feel. And like, this is the actual truth. Okay. Like now you can know what was just happening.
Yeah. If you've ever been around a snare drum, you'll notice that when you're near the snare drum is always telling you what's happening in the room, unless someone's got the damper on. But like if someone walks in the room, the snare drum goes. If someone sits down next to it and starts talking, the snare drum will be like. It's a diaphragm that's reflecting its atmosphere. But how the fuck is it supposed to do that if the moment anyone comes in the room, you start beating it?
Yeah.
You know? If you start just like boom, 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 hey, how's it going, Tom? Good to see you, blah, blah, blah. You no longer have a diaphragm now to listen. You no longer have a reflective way to be with that person. And that's what's really interesting is that when you have enough confidence, when you have enough ego, when you have enough fuel, that's the key, because ego is fuel. When you have enough fuel, you can give that plasma to someone else because your tank is full. That plasma is compassion. That plasma is empathy. And that plasma is only going to pour from you through confidence in your own diaphragm. And you're only going to have confidence. When I say diaphragm, I'm talking about the ability to listen.
Yeah.
But as you grow in that confidence, as your diaphragm becomes more reliable, that really is what defines you, I think, as a true human, as a true wisdom. You know, someone who's out there looking, an alchemist, so to speak, someone who's truly looking for that. And that's when you'll be either pushed out or embraced deeply, based on how well you do that. In other words, some people don't like that. They don't want a seer in their village, and other people really, really want that seer. And you know, you'll start to understand real quick that it's not that you're a hermit; it's that only so many people are going to be comfortable around that kind of emoting from you, around that sort of beholding from you. And that's what looks like the hermetical life is more about the diaphragm of the snare drum just simply being quiet long enough. And people walk in and they're like, well, that fucking diaphragm is going to give me away. You know, I'm freaking lying over here. I'm so stressed out about this, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to talk about that. You know, get away from me. And that you get that more than you get, hey, James, can we talk about something? You know, that's right. What I get most of the time is people just really rejecting, how dare you make things so clear to me?
It's like, how dare you hold up this mirror? I have people, ask me like, how do you piss off so many people throughout your life so well? And I'm like, I think I'm just a really good mirror. And I think they don't like what they see.
Yeah.
I take it as a compliment at some level, but I feel like this relates to what we're talking about. Obviously it does, because all of the ideas relate to each other. But you say Thomas tells you your bones have always been the antenna. Thomas wants you to find the Christ in 3 dimensions. There is a trinity of strings inside you. Your mind, your heart, and your gut strike chords in major, minor, augmented, or diminished. Put down the binoculars and pick up the stethoscope. Place its chilly steel disc against your bashful skin and listen. This is the sound of a universe. Be as God to your earful kingdom. You are lord of your body. Every cell is following your commandments. Your heart is the drummer boy watching for your cue. You are the maestro of intuition, morals, and reason. Your pelvis wants you to be seated here. Your throne aches for the rule of someone just like you. It's basically everything we just said summed up in a beautiful analogy there.
I support that statement.
Yeah.
Really, it's true. There's, there's so much truth to. There are 7 trillion blood cells inside your body right now, and every one of them is just looking to you, Lindsay. Like, you're doing a great job, Lindsay. Wherever you want us to go, we'll go. You want us to rush to your head, we'll there, man. You want us in your toes, we'll be there. No problem. And most of our bodies have never had a captain on the bridge. But this captain comes on the bridge and he's like, "What's the status report?" And in the middle of the status report, everyone's getting a status report. He's like, "You know what? I don't even want to fucking hear it."
Yeah.
The doctor will be by here. We're going to go into port. You can fucking tell him what you want, or the teacher, or whatever. It's like, I don't belong here on this bridge. I do not have, you guys, no. I'm not the right person for this job. We're going to screw something up.
This goes back to that trauma and us vacating ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's literally what we're doing.
Yeah. And what's so sad about it is that as we're doing that, the very boat that we're on, that we're commanding, is being used to kill other innocent people as we're literally walking around it. And all this self-talk, all the bad talk that you give ourselves, you have to really realize that self-talk is you as captain telling yourself that. And you have to imagine how your crew's going to feel. How's your pancreas going to feel when the person it's supposed to look up to hates itself? When the person that it's supposed to look up to for leadership and guidance has no confidence in its own abilities whatsoever, that feels carbon footprinty and dirty and sinning, sinful and academically imbecilic, or ignorant or unqualified or too blue collary or not educated enough or whatever else it is. It's, imagine how your body feels watching the captain spend 40, 20, 30, 50, 80 years of its life literally just telling everybody to fuck off, that don't ask me. I don't know how this works.
Abdicating your throne.
Yeah. That's why I say the pelvis is the throne.
Yeah.
You really have to sit in your throne, guys. You have to. And you can pretend like that it's humble or meek or good in some way to not sit on your throne, but it's literally the opposite. Like, it's the satanic, the definition of Satanism is not a red devil. It's a evacuated machine. Yes. It's the emptiness of self is satanic. It's not a beast that's full of carnal lust and passion and blood. Blood is life force. Blood is liquid passion. That's the opposite of Satanism. Satanism is a lack of passion. It is I don't want to be captain of this ship. It is I don't even care about where the engine room is. I just don't even want to go there. That's what true Satanism is. When you evacuate yourself, you turn into a machine. You become, from a living creature, you turn yourself into a machine.
Absolutely. It's well said. I really encourage people to read this book, because I think, a lot of us, I think, in this community have this tendency to be like, oh, I already kind of get all that, so whatever. Like, what am I going to get from it? But it's like you said, it's like this very emotional and sort of visceral, like, journey through the sort of history of it all, and really internalizing that in your body and seeing it again. And I think it's always worth revisiting, especially because I think it's pretty obvious that we're all walking around traumatized. And so even if people feel like especially if people feel like they are getting a lot out of this talk, then this is a book that you definitely want to read. And even if there's things that you're like, yeah, I kind of already got that, it's like repeating it and reinforcing it is not a bad thing because we're not out of it yet.
I don't think everyone's got everything in that book.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I think I think you're going to miss stuff. And that's why it's called The Blueprints of Mind Control. It's 47 different chapters. They're all really short.
They're very short, and they're really, again, poetically written and effective.
And they're short for that reason, because I realize what kind of culture we're living in now, and what we have now. And I don't want to distract people with, I'm going to tell you what it is I'm about to tell you in 2 pages.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. We're getting close.
Right.
I really want these to be tinctures.
Yes.
These are tinctured stories that are just showing you the same blueprint, because until you see that blueprint of the crook and the flail, until you see it, you're going to fall for it again, because it permeates everything. It's a necessary structure to the fractal that we're living in. This crook flail, red blue, 2 towers thing. It's a very important structural part of it. And until you learn to see it, you're going to fall for it, because I'll know people that will think, well, no, academia is untainted. I will go there to find my cleansing. And no, they're getting the exact same treatment as they were if they were to be indoctrinated into the idea that, well, you're a crooked sinner and you're not the chosen, you're not God's people, you're God's bastard child twice removed. It's even though they might have one concept, they don't necessarily see the other concept until you see the blueprint. Once you see the blueprint, which by the way is a 3-step process, the blueprint's really simple. Step 1, break target. Step 2, convince target that the solution must come from outside themselves. In other words, make monopoly over their solution. Step 3, extract resources from the target. Yeah. Those 3 steps, it's always those 3 steps. It's always the exact same blueprint, and it always is installed the exact same way. Someone loses confidence in their own ego and in their own ability to become sovereign. That's how it always works every single time.
Absolutely. This is a fascinating. I'm really not trying to just like plug my own shit, but this novel that I've written is like this book, but in a fictional story format.
Oh, cool.
So it's really interesting to me as well that like everything you're saying is what the characters in the book kind of learn and go through also. And I think it's really important to nail that message home of this, you're calling it the ego, and people are going to like balk at that or whatever. But this idea that you and yourself are whole and pure and good and capable, and that there isn't anything outside of yourself that you need in order to continue being that.
I'm waiting for someone to challenge me on the ego thing, like to really challenge me.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for someone to say, well, James, but you don't understand how psychology, obviously, you nitwit, because there's an id and a super ego and an ego, or there's your animus and then your anime. I'm waiting for someone to challenge me on that, but they won't. But let's pretend like they do.
Yeah, what do you think they would say?
Ego is always good. Ego is literal fuel in your gas tank. And some of us are pretending that we're somehow a better person for driving around on an empty gas tank.
Yeah.
When you're driving around on that empty gas tank, you are put into a limbic state of shock where you're like, I'm about to run out of gas. I'm about to run out of gas. You're not going to wait for an old lady to cross the street. You're not going to wait for the light to the next time for the light to come because you're afraid you're going to run out of gas. You're going to do desperate actions all the time. And if you're going to tell me, well, no, ego's the bad part, so you need to learn how to integrate with your id or your super ego. And I'm here to tell you, Freud, disassociation is a form of mind control. Disassociation is when you come in with a cleaver and you splinter the mind.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing by dividing the mind into these different parts. He's pretending that, well, no, there's this one part and this is the good part, but then there's this other part, it's a bad part.
Which is just like original sin or whatever. It's just the same exact thing, but in psychology.
Thank you. It's the exact same thing. It's like, no, you don't understand. You really want to pork your mother. That's what's happening. And until you understand that you just really, really want to have sex with your dad, you're not going to get how fucked up you are.
Yeah.
This is disassociation. I'm telling you, anyone that you find that you're told, oh, his ego is way too big. What you're looking at is someone who's almost on empty. They're literally about to run out of gas and they're freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
They don't have too much ego. They have completely the opposite of that. And they need someone who has plenty of ego that can come up to them. And instead of saying, stop freaking out about how the fact that you need ego. Man, you're so selfish, you shouldn't need ego. That's like literally coming up to someone. Stop freaking out that you don't have gas, man. Why do you got to get all pissed off because you don't have gas? What the hell's wrong with you? What, are you going to run out of gas and not be able to get home or something? And the whole time they're like, yes, that's exactly what my problem is. I need gas.
Yeah.
Instead, it should be the other way around. It should be exactly the other way around. It should be like, look, man, you need more ego right now. You don't need less, you need more. You
That's
need
a
to love
good...
yourself more than this right now. But we're told over and over again, no, James, you don't understand. Sure, I guess intrinsically James is right because like overall, no. There's nothing intrinsic, there's nothing superficial, there's nothing symbolic about this. Ego is literal fuel, it's plasmic fuel. Charisma, where does that come from? It comes from ego. What happens when you want to defend your family's honor? Where does that come from? It comes from ego. Where does your sense of morality come from? Where does your sense of, hey, I'm going to stand up against these bullies right now and do something right? That comes from ego. Every single thing that happens good in your life when it comes to tapping into your family, your soil, your DNA, your family heritage, your history, all of that is coming from ego. That is all plasma, and it is the heart of magic. It is the heart of every single thing that makes anything special happen around this world, whether it be art, creation, music, life, love, cooking, all of that comes from ego. It comes from this extra energy that we have where we're able to empathically put more into something that we can then share with others. All that is an abundance of ego. It's not the lack of ego. It's not the deficit of ego.
Yeah.
And it sure as hell isn't this fucked up ascension program where if you enter this and enter into level 7, you've been cleared. What you're really doing by being cleared is that you dismissed all desire for hunger and any kind of substance for ego at all whatsoever, which basically means you're a grub worm. You're a fucking grub worm with genitals, and you're walking around the world pretending that you're better than everybody else because you have no needs. That's insanity.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because so this is another trick of language, I feel like, because, what I would call ego is what you're describing as a lack of ego. So like I'm like seeing something and I'm like, oh, that's fucking ego. Like this person is just like waiting their turn if I can talk without listening, and like, God, they're so egotistical. And it's like exactly what you're describing is not having enough ego. So it's this interesting like lie in our words again,
Next time you see someone doing that,
say you need more ego.
Inject belief in them. See what they do. Inject some belief in them and watch how much they change. You'll find that works so much more effectively than the other way around.
I have found that, but I also get tired of doing it for people. I mean, I'm honestly like, this has been my whole life is doing that for people. And I'm like, at some point, I'm like, okay, this is like some of you guys, got to go do this on your own with someone else or something like.
Yeah, but you can do that and just be really brutally honest.
Yeah.
You can say, hey, look, here's what I'm sensing. I think maybe you need more ego, blah, 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 blah. I've seen this before.
You got to do it somewhere else.
Blah, blah, blah. And actually, though, here's the thing. I think if you truly are giving someone some of your gas and you have enough and they truly are out, I don't think that you end up feeling so drained from that. I actually think
agree.
You end up feeling better from doing that. What drains you is when you're like, yeah, and you could like as you're doing it, you're just like, oh, this fucking guy's killing me. He's killing you because you're not being honest either. Because you're not going, let me stop you right there.
That's true.
I'm having a somatic experience right now. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, just bear with me. Like, it feels like there's this sucking energy that's coming out of my soul. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, picture saying this to someone. It just feels like there's this energy that's being sucked out of me right now. And I don't like that. I want this to be a different exchange. And you don't want that, right? You don't want me to feel like, no, of course not. I don't want you to feel that way either. Okay, well, I just wanted to point that out because I'm just trying to be more in touch with my somatic body and like who I am and what I'm doing. And it feels like maybe you need a little boost right now. Maybe right now what you need is like, you need to feel better about yourself. And I want you to feel great about yourself, man. But I want that to come from inside of you. I want that, like, imagine having this conversation with someone.
It's like brutal honesty. It's not even brutal.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. But
It's not even brutal, but it does come across that way. And when I
yeah,
have this conversation with people, a lot of times those people end up calling me up going, hey, can I book a session with you?
yeah,
Like I really want to talk about this more. And when you're having a session with someone, you can really open up and just somatically just fucking connect with somebody.
Yeah.
And then that's what the campfire vision I have is all about, because I used to do this with kids. But
yeah,
you can connect over these campfires. You can connect in these events where you can energetically feel how someone's doing and understand what it is they need. Because if they have enough ego, they're going to start to give ego out to
yes.
others. And it's going to be much more sustainable, and it'll end up feeding everybody. And I guarantee you, as you give ego to someone else, it will never feel like it's draining you. It'll feel more like a prana economy. Why? Because it feels good to serve someone. It would be like saying, well, I opened this restaurant, but I feel drained because people are coming to eat my food.
Yeah.
No, because if you truly were in the restaurant business, you wouldn't feel that way at all. You would feel the exact opposite. You'd be like, fuck yeah, we're making it. This is happening. People are coming. Our tables are full. You want that. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't feel like a deficit. But if you're almost out and someone comes in, it's going to feel the exact opposite. It's going to be like, oh, this fucker's here.
Yes.
We're not doing well enough anyway. That kind of thing. I could have closed early, but now this asshole's here.
That's exactly what I'm describing, though. I'm like, if you are constantly giving out whatever ego, right, then and more people are coming in to ask for more ego. Like at some point, you just like cannot keep giving out more ego.
But I think that you'll find that there's people who want the They're not actually wanting ego. They're wanting to stop their leaking. They're not actually there. So it's a different kind of exchange you end up having with them. The people that you're constantly going those people, you're not actually giving them ego. You're giving them the opposite. You're sort of like abandoning them because you're just like It's a totally different exchange altogether.
Yeah, I think this is something that I can definitely practice more. Is sometimes being more honest in that way.
Yeah.
And asking other people to be too.
With strangers, sorry to interrupt, but
No,
it's always better to practice that with strangers. Imagine your favorite restaurant. If it's your favorite restaurant and you go there every Friday, and no matter what, like clockwork, Friday at 5:30, you show up at this restaurant, and you show up one day and they're closed. You've been betrayed deeply, like by this restaurant. Like that's how it feels.
Yeah.
If it's a restaurant you've never been to and you show up at 5:30 and they're closed, you're gonna be like, oh, okay, they're closed. We'll go somewhere else. But that restaurant, the one you go to all the time, the next week you're gonna be like, those fuckers closed. Oh, they closed and they closed early. They wouldn't serve me. I went in and there was Sarah and my regular waitress. She's like, no, I'm sorry, we're closed today. It was like, and she fucking hates me. But you're gonna feel that because you've established a prana economy up front. And once that economy's been established for a while, it gets harder and harder and harder for you to change that. So you're always going to be a much more alchemically powerful around strangers until you get your full sovereignty back. And even then, I think you'll find certain people in your life, like just as an example, my older brother, for example, because he's my older brother, there's just certain energy that's going to be that way because we've always had that, prana economy that we've had established the whole time.
Right.
But someone else that I've met brand new, it's very easy for me to set boundaries with them because we just met. Absolutely. I'm not even surprising them. They're just like, James is this way.
Yeah.
Another proof is that people, it's not that nice people have more friends. It's actually not. It's predictable people have more friends. And I can prove that because all of us have that curmudgeon-y guy or girl that we're friends with. They're like, totally like so off the cuff, real abrasive as hell. It's because they're predictable that you accept that. You just accept that part of their personality with them, just as you would accept a super nice person. Yeah. What you're really doing is you're saying, I accept you as safe because you're always predictable with me. As long as you keep being predictable, you and I will be fine. Even if you're a jerk, as long as you were a jerk just as much on day one as you're a jerk now, because what I want is stability in my life. Again, this is what I mean about the chemical mind control.
Yeah.
If you really think about this, it starts to make sense because you understand what we want is to save calories. What we want is a predictable environment because that's the reptilian in us. First thing reptile never asks, is it moral? It asks, is this unique? Is it novel? And is it dangerous? Yeah. Those are the only two things it cares about. And if it finds out it's novel, if it's not novel, it doesn't even bother step 2. It just simply goes, oh, okay, it's cool.
Yeah.
All good.
That's true.
Anyway,
Yes. I love this. It's something to work up to, and I love that you pointed out that it feels good to serve people, because it really, really does.
it was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't do it well, right? And unless it's like what you said, and you're full of your gas or your ego. So it's an important thing to work on ourselves as always, and that is one reason why, is that we can then serve other people. But I do want you to remind people where they can find more of you and purchase all 3 of your wonderful books.
Well, thanks for having me on. And I just want to say I'm really sorry that I missed last week.
Oh, no problem.
I was really looking forward to this, so I appreciate you letting me have a redo. And my website is jtrue.com. You guys can come there and subscribe to my mailing list. I've been getting into video lately, so I've got a YouTube channel. If you go to my website, you can find the YouTube channel from there. And yeah, we're working on a lot of cool projects right now that I'll just keep talking if I go into them now, but we got a lot of cool stuff happening.
You're welcome to describe them if you want to. We've got time.
But we're trying to get into doing more YouTube videos kind of stuff.
Your YouTube videos are awesome.
I've written a screenplay that we're trying to turn into a series.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like Blueprint to Mind Control, but in a story format.
Like a visual.
It's basically a story about giants, of the history before America. There were giants here, and there's a wisdom to that. We're tapping into that wisdom. That's a screenplay we wrote, and then we're filming a documentary about sovereignty all year long. We're basically going to all these Civil War reenactments,
cool.
And we're asking, because these people really know their history, we're asking them the same questions over and over again. Why do you think the Civil War happened? We're asking their character that. And then after their character answers, then we're asking the person who's playing that character, why do you think the Civil War happened? And I'm under the impression that as people start to see how people answer these questions, we can really start to unwrap that there's this myth that we have a Mason-Dixon magical line that was drawn with fucking chalk through our country, and everyone north of it was like the good guys, and everyone south of it was the bad guys. It's like such a stupid fairy tale. And so I hope this sovereignty documentary that we're filming will basically just be exposing that, but in a year-long way. So as we go to all these different people doing stuff, they can kind of share their stories. We have a big Patreon account that's helping me do this. There's no way I could do this myself. We'd love it if you want to join us on this project, but you can check in with Patreon and just kind of see how we're doing. And we're second filming is this weekend, actually, in Brooksville, Florida. There's a Civil War reenactment there that we're going to. Cool. So it should be a busy year. I'm looking forward to it.
Can people find that Patreon from your site?
Yeah, it should be right there on the site. Pretty much, if you just look for James True, you should be able to find me as needed on whichever platform. So yeah, you'll see me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, my website, and on Patreon.
Perfect. And then as we wrap things up, what is the kind of final takeaway that you want people to focus on as they're looking back on this conversation? What are your final words of wisdom?
Man is the living soil. You are an incarnation of the ground beneath you. You are a walking bone antenna of meat and wisdom. And just as we talk about epigenetic trauma, we don't get to talk about epigenetic wisdom a lot. But just like trauma is transmitted down, so too is wisdom. And the more you remember your ancestors and your soil, the more wisdom you're able to literally pull up from them. You're able to chronically tap into them and pull up that plasma right out of the ground and ingest it into your own life, fuse it into your own bones. And you can charge these moments right now. Right now, as you're listening, you can charge your own DNA and say, 10,000 years in the future, me, I'm here, man. I love you. I love what we're doing here. This is me right now. This is what's important to me. And we establish these time capsules throughout our history. Our ancestors are our own timeline. So your 5-year-old is your ancestor. Your 20-year-old is your ancestor. Your 2-year-old is your ancestor. The same as your grandparents, the same as your grand-grandparents. All of these are a power cell that each of us can tap into. We have to get over the amnesia. We have to trust that our bones can resonate and find that truth. And it works. You see this with your own family. This is why people go to graves and they visit they're deceased. They're literally drawing power up from them by remembering. Isn't that funny? By remembering our bones, the amnesia goes away. So it's an active form of remembrance that cleanses this and makes us more powerful.
I love that. I love that as an opposition to the other type of sigil that you can charge, is that you're charging your own self and your own consciousness and projecting that into the future. That gives me hope.
Make yourself a totem pole. Make yourself a living chief of your own life. And others around you will see that, and they will want to be taller just by extension. And that's really the best thing you could do to help this world is help yourself, man. Make yourself proud to be in your body. Give your pancreas something to look up to. Give your liver something to look up to. And that means you have to be captain. You have to really, really command that pelvis, all hands on deck, general quarters, whatever it takes. Just really seat yourself into your body. Be quiet when others are talking. Really listen to them emote. Listen to what kind of emotions that you feel coming from them right now. And then take guesses. Just take a stab and say, hey, do you feel this way? And just ask. All you'll do is learn.
Yeah. Excellent. Fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. And this has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom according to James True. James, thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge with us.
Oh, thank you. It's a real pleasure.
Thanks. The deceit is ancient and deep. Our immersion and entanglement in it is infinitely intricate and feels impossible to unwind and overcome. It feels so heavy on our body, on our soul, and mostly on our mind that we feel we can never buck out from under its spell. But James reminds us, quote, "You are a living sequoia of breathing skin with feet. Let the moon see your fingertips reach from splendor. Unlock your psychology from the barrel of monkeys. Place yourself back in the center of a torus. Make this your universe and take its feather as your new psychology. How heavy is your mind now?" End quote. And until your mind is as light as a feather and you've reclaimed every aspect of your sovereignty, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
It's a one-on-one lesson, so do your homework. Make your dome hurt while up on earth. My bones are blessed from holy dirt. Vibes manifested to words that told me search for verbs and adjectives to describe birth. Worth more than one can speak, while the tongue feeds a weak, a sour taste in your mouth, bittersweet. Words can also kill you when you sleep. Mind condition, low frequencies while the subconscious mind listens. I can tell a vision filled with lies disguised as truth, and spread it like the word to the youth. Watch the tube. A place where the God gets booed is sorcery. To recreate a God forgery does more than meets the eye. Not too many know. Just hear me flow like the eye of Horus Penny, yo. Yeah, not ready to leave until we believe we're free to go. You hear me, yo?
The material will eat ya. Stuck on this plane, lanes use jet fuel to greet ya. The dimensional 3 ain't beating me on top of the 4th. Didn't climb Jacob's ladder to squab with a sword. Forged with Yggdrasil, branch down. Try quiet your lamps now. Ascension past the matter. Let they slam out they damn mouths. We ain't on land now, but they over understand. Sacrificing wisdom, hoarding dumber, kosher, wicked hands. Putting faith in worthless worship of the mortals. Artificial portals, mass ingestion of the black goo. Bioengineered morsels, conversing with machine elves. Bypassing maggots, they stuck on Android screens now. I'm scrolling emerald tablets. Moloch living lavish, off the backs of the savage. Them clasped hands at the Sabbath. Smack of energy damage, they done twisted the tongues. But nanotech in the lungs, the awakening's begun. All they really can do is fucking run.